I never know how to like open a podcast, especially like the first one.
Yeah.
Is it like a music sting? Is it like a hey, how you doing?
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
Hey.
Is it a radio voice? Is it a morning news show? Should I bring my air horn? Like I really don't know. I thought about this a lot. I was in the shower earlier and I'm like, what? How do we start? What do we do?
This sounds perfect.
This sounds good.
This sounds perfect.
Just like a slow rolling start. Like we're putting the car in neutral and just kind of rolling along. And maybe
we're setting the expectations low,
which is
that
great.
way the farther it goes in, they're like, man, this is gonna suck, and then they're like, okay.
I heard you just have to hook them for the first 30 seconds. So like if we could, like we just got like 3, 2, 1. If they're still here, they might. I think they're stuck.
Yeah, I think so. They're probably in all the way at this point.
Oh, hey now everybody, welcome to the Sidepole Podcast. We're like your weekly-ish Dota podcast where we strive to keep on to speed what's going on around the world of Dota, but without all the nitty-gritty. So our promise to you is that you don't need to know who got buffed in 7.2F or that the patch is 7.2F or what a patch is or what the letter F is. I get really lost after CD and E, to be honest. We want to keep it simple, and the International is right around the corner, so I feel like there's oodles of people who are coming back into the Dota space.
Absolutely. I think this is Dota 2 has very, very rapidly become one of those games that people no longer play, but they watch a lot. Maybe they were going to college and they were able to play a bunch of Dota, and now they have to go out into the real world and get real jobs and have kids and stuff like that. And so instead they just watch Dota because they can't really keep up.
That's me. I'm so embarrassed how much money I spent on my battle pass for the International this year. And the last time I played a game of Dota is not anytime recently. So it's like, it's just a dumb financial investment. My name's Joey. You might know me more as Leafeator, like that asshat from Reddit. But luckily for me, I'm not alone. With me is someone who's exponentially more important, knowledgeable, good-looking, like all the superlatives. If anyone clicked on this episode link, it's 100% not because they saw my name. It's because they saw your name, Cap.
I'm just happy to be here. Honestly, I've been a part of so many podcasts that at this point, those same people who clicked on this podcast to tune in, they're like, oh, Cap's doing another podcast. Can't wait to watch the first episode and then never see another one.
Maybe
again.
The second one. I feel like there's 2 that exist on your YouTube channel, and I was looking for the third one.
Yes, the third one never happens. The problem is that like I need somebody to be able to work with that actually wants to do it, because working with Dota people, they never want to do anything. They never want to, like, players don't want to do interviews, talent don't want to actually do anything outside of their actual job. So,
I might be here for you, maybe. I mean, to be honest, we've never really like spent time together. This is literally the most time we spent talking to each other in our entire lives.
Yeah,
we're just going to start recording.
We committed at least an hour spending time and talking together on a podcast. So this is going to click.
We might leave this studio and just never speak again. That's a real possibility. So,
oh man.
It's fun. It's interesting though. I mean, it seems exciting to be able to do a podcast for people who like aren't the most hardcore of the hardcore Dota audience.
Yeah, I think that there's so many people that again watch but don't play, and then there's so many people who tune into the International, and that's the only time that they watch Dota. That I think this is, in general, I think this is a really good idea. I just hope honestly that I get like a few people who are like, oh, let me catch up on TI, listen to this podcast, watch TI, and then go, I should watch more of these games. Because honestly, Dota is such an incredible esport. Like, I feel so strongly about that.
We're both probably pretty biased, but I agree.
I just think that there's so many people who are like missing out. Like I look at some other esports, I follow all the other esports almost. And CSGO is like fantastic. Love watching CSGO. But I feel like there are other esports out there that like, man, you're just missing out. If you just got to learn Dota 2 and you just got into that, you would begin to understand like there's so much depth. There's such great storylines. Honestly, this year is going to be one of the best years for storylines going into the International. It's a life-changing amount of money, obviously, and that's
truly
the biggest selling point that people usually tune into. They're like, this tournament's got over $30 million. I should probably see what's going on.
That's why my mom knows about it. She's like, hey, that Dota thing you like, it's like the $30 million this year, right? Are you going to China, Joey? I'm like, I'm not going to China. You're going to China.
Honestly, I feel kind of bad for like some of the other esports who have to deal with that. Like, oh, I talk about esports for a living. Oh, do you cover that one game that has a $30 million prize pool? No. My tournament had a $50,000 prize pool. Like, honestly, it's like
which is
an
still
absurd amount of money that
a lot of money still.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of money just compared to Dota2 and TI and stuff. It's like nothing can possibly match that.
It's almost like we're doing a disservice to other esports.
Yeah, a little bit. But that's how, like, if you take away the money, and honestly, I hate talking about the money, like, the money does represent how awesome Dota 2 is as an esport. Like, honestly, I think it's like, it just blows almost every other esport out of the water when it comes to depth in strategy, when it comes to some of the storylines that have built up over the years. Our players are not great when it comes to selling themselves as personalities, but
really.
We have such a depth of history that these storylines have been built up without needing them to be forward and trash talking and all these other things that usually come about from athletes or other esports and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and part of the reason why the prize pool is so big, some people might not even know this, is that the community contributes to the prize pool, which is how it's just ballooned. Because when it was announced this year, a lot of people were like, it might not be the biggest one ever. Well, like, I don't know. Is it going to be bigger than last year's? What about Fortnite? They got $30 million. What are we going to do? And then lo and behold, here we are again back on top. So
yeah, Valve really outdoes themselves every year when it comes to selling the compendium. And every year I'm surprised at how much support there is still from the player base from when it comes to supporting the compendium. Every year I think like, oh, we finally reached our peak. We're not going to be able to go past that again.
Yeah, it has to stop eventually.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're almost hedging our bets, right? We're like, this will be the year. Like, let's just play it safe. Let's set our expectations low.
Honestly, I just want that year to finally happen. That way, like, the money stops becoming such a fixation point, because I feel like the money almost does it's a very shallow reason to be interested in Dota 2. I love the fact that it changes people's lives and the fact that like the people who win, like they're set for the rest of their life. They work so hard to be able to get to this moment. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic that the money is able to back their achievement and how hard it is to be able to be on top in Dota 2. But it does also just becomes a fixation and such an annoying talking point.
How big can it get? And here we are talking about it. We're part of the problem right now. We're actively making it worse because there's so many other things about TI that are interesting. It's not just the money. The international is like Dota Christmas, Dota Super Bowl, Dota Emmys. Like, it is the event, and it's not just a day. It's going to be 2 weeks of everyone coming back into this community and being like, oh yeah, Dota, that's great. This is great. I love these games. I love these people. Look at how cool the production value is. Like, it's just a real cacophony of everything that kind of represents our game. So, I mean, what is when you think about TI Cap, what does it really mean to you? What's the important? What's the big top level TI stuff?
So I was thinking about this a lot recently because the talent invites were recently announced, and I was on that list. And
you were towards the top of the list. I don't know. You're being modest about it, but
it's only because my nickname starts with a C.
Are you sure it was alphabetical? Sure I don't know. I'm like, you're a top
because I'm right next to Blitz and BSJ, so I'm pretty sure it's just that.
Okay, that's fine.
I do think that every year it's a cathartic release. Like, I did it. I got invited. I'm not going to say it's the exact same as what the players experience, but it is a similar qualifying process, I would say. And that it is that kind of thing where I worked all year to be able to make it to this point. This is the end goal. Basically, if I don't make TI, I consider the year a failure, which kind of sucks to have everything right on one event, but at the same time, it's an amazing feeling, and I don't think that many people get to experience that kind of approval in their day-to-day jobs. I mean, I remember like doing grinds at the warehouse at a paper mill, and it's like nobody was there once a year to tell me like, we think you did a fantastic job.
You're the best paper miller.
Here's a big bonus. Like nothing like that, And so it's I realized how like privileged I am to be able to have that kind of acknowledgement of just like, hey, great job. Here's this thing you get to go do. That's awesome.
That's kind of interesting to me because I feel like, I mean, not to blow too much smoke up your ass, but you are one of the premier top level casters. Period.
Yes,
so, like,
go on. I am magnificent.
The best. I feel like a lot of people just assume that you're like a shoo-in to be there, kind of almost regardless of your year's worth of performance. But even just you saying that makes it seem like you're still thinking about it like you're not, don't take anything for granted.
I think TI, the international, is such a big deal for both players and for talent that nobody wants to ever have the hubris of saying, like, I'm a guaranteed invite. I'm guaranteed going to make it as TI as a player. I think every single player and talent has a little bit of fear that they're not going to make it and a very strong drive to work harder and be better. So that way they can make this big event. So
I know a lot of people are probably concerned because this year the international for the first time is in China.
Yeah.
Which is very far away. And normally, for almost every other year of its existence, it's been in North America, Seattle, Vancouver, except for the first year it was in Germany, of course. But, it makes sense to have more English-based talent at those other internationals because that's where the audience, that's what the audience is listening to. That's where the predominant broadcast is. Valve's an English-speaking company. But being in China, I heard a lot of talent being concerned of like, well, how many people are they going to take? Like, is there going to be less people? Do I have to work harder? What's it going to look like for me? So I think it was kind of cool to see that they did bring still such a bolstered roster over there. Yeah,
I was definitely slightly concerned about that, but I will say that Valve never seemed to shortchange the Russian or Chinese broadcasts when it was predominantly an English broadcast, when it was in Seattle, in Vancouver. So I wasn't terribly surprised to see they still brought a very large roster. And after all, it is the biggest esports tournament out there, hosts the biggest prize pool. I think the production is just amazing. And, to be able to back that, you have to bring a lot of quote unquote talent in for that. So
you can't have the community mad at you. Like, why did you cheap out? Why didn't you pay one salary? I wanted to see capitalists.
Yeah. It's it's always going to be that one of those sticking points of like who made it, who didn't.
It being in China does present like some woes though. Like I know me who will be staying in California for the whole international. It's going to happen during the entirety of my sleeping period, which I feel like is selfish, right? Because I've had so many TIs that were absolutely exquisite for my day-to-day schedule. So now I'm the one who's being entitled and complaining about it's happening when I'm sleeping tonight. But like that like I'm worried about being able to like even catch up and watch all of TI this year.
I think it is. I think it's still such a great viewing experience that people shouldn't worry too much about being able to watch it live. I think being able to watch it on VODs and stuff, and even if you can only watch like an hour or two of it, I think the combination of production and the like every single game. The thing about why I was talking about like being able to have this big approval at the end of the year and saying like, oh, I made it. And talking about the like hubris is that because everybody experiences that both in talent and the player pool, I feel like everybody works very hard to get better. And there are very, very few times in Dota 2 that you can say that people were resting on their laurels, that a player, just like got washed up because he got lazy or something like that. And that is also what makes the international such a great viewing experience, is that the play and strategy that is presented is so high level because everybody, again, it's such a life-changing amount of money that everybody is spending every waking minute from here on until the international ends, thinking about TI and thinking about what am I going to do to be the best that I can be at this event. And the players, like the play is unbelievable. The stakes have never been higher. So the drama is naturally amazing. It's like some player developments like take OG versus Evil Geniuses. There was the recent OG documentary that I highly recommend people check out. As a
it was
nice
Red Bull
little,
produced, right?
Yeah, it was produced by it was funded by Red Bull, and they put together this documentary about the OG story and how they won TI and everything that led into it. And I think that is just one example of the great drama that goes into the international. I highly recommend anybody, if you're gearing up for TI, to watch that broadcast. And
it's cool because, like, you know, even if you compare it to like the NFL per se, because these people who play Dota, these people who are esports professionals come from an internet background. Like, they're more public. If nothing else. So you can really see what goes into their day-to-day. They're streaming, they're forward-facing, they're playing tournaments all year long. You have access to their Twitters. You know what's going on behind the scenes, and these documentaries provide more of an access to like see that these are people who are working very, very hard to accomplish their dreams.
And I think it's one of the best ways to be able to showcase the drama and emotions that go into a game like this. You know, people like outside media will talk about like how much can you really get out of like video games as a human drama piece, like, and people who are familiar with esports but maybe not with Dota 2 probably look at it and see like it's kind of hard to be able to talk about the personality of people in games at times compared to like, say, a first-person shooter where you've got people like Simple popping off and you can always go to that point, right? Dota 2 with its like complexity is a little hard to get into that human drama, which is where these like documentaries like the OG one, you get a much better sense of like how much these players care about these moments and all of the stresses that either break or make some of these players and teams as they manage to move forward.
And it's tools like that can also introduce other people to Dota. Like I can show that documentary to my mom, to friends when they're over at night, and they can like get and understand and see the human element of this, and not just be like, oh, I don't understand Dota, or oh, I play League, or I don't really like RTS's MOBAs. What are we calling Dota these days?
I've actually lost total track of what our genre is called. I think it's MOBAs, but Action
RTS is the latest one I think we're going with that. I'm genuinely not sure. I'm really fishing.
All I know is that whenever I talk to other people, it's like I always have to introduce it. When it comes to North America, I always have to introduce, League of Legends? Oh, yeah, I've heard of that game. Okay, I do a game like that. Like that's pretty much like what I have to introduce it to the normies out there in North America anyway, because that's just the way it goes.
Yeah,
but
what game do you play? It's a PC one, right? Like it's a. But I don't want the conversation to be that. Like I long to just be able to be like, oh yeah, like I play Dota, or I watch Dota, or I participate in Dota, and just have that be more commonplace.
Yeah, and I think that documentary is a great way to be able to open people up to what goes on in these esports. A lot of people will look at it and it's just like, playing video games. The biggest thing that really gets to me is whenever I talk to, especially a little bit older people, esports and like, playing video games for money and stuff. How much is the prize pool? $30 million. And it's always the same joke every single time. It's like, oh man, I should have gotten into video games more when I was younger. And it's just like, or I wish that was a thing when I was younger and stuff. And it's like, I would never say that. Oh, LeBron James makes how much money? Oh, I should have played basketball more.
Basketball.
Like nobody says that, right? And because that's exactly the thing about the international.
Games are easy, right? They're just basically playing advanced Mario Kart. Like I can play Mario Kart, I can win $30 million.
Yeah, the international is not a lottery by any stretch of the imagination. Like there is not. It's not something that has been a big marketing campaign and somebody's just going to luck into a whole lot of money. This is something that has been known, that has gone on. This is going to be the 9th international. Everybody has built their career and their lives around this. This has worked really, really hard to be there. And as a result, the whole iron sharpens iron, all those sorts of analogies about like people just working really hard and competition and the nature of competition making people better. Like that's what makes the international such a great experience, is the fact that like everybody is at the very tip top of their game and is just exponentially better than anybody else who's even close to playing competitively in the same game.
Yeah, I would consider myself an above average Dota player, but I can't, but like barely. Like if there's a bell curve, I'm just slightly to the right.
Yeah.
And the amount of difference between, well, first off, even me and you, and then you and professional players is just, it's comical.
To give the audience like a little bit of perspective, I am a play-by-play caster as well as an analyst, and my rank is usually anywhere from 500 to I once was top 100.
I mean,
in
500
North
meaning you're
America.
like one of the top 500
Yeah,
players.
so
in
I
America.
was a top 500 or, anywhere from top 500 to top 100 North American player. And honestly, my skill level is garbage compared to the professionals that I play with. Every single time that I get into a game with one of them, I am just like, I feel like I'm lost in the game. And this is somebody that I've dedicated my life to. I played this game for like over a decade and a half now, I think.
That's like more than half of our lives.
Yeah, and I
playing
feel
Dota.
like I'm lost when I'm playing with some of these pro players. So just to give, if I'm top 500, like the top 10 people in my region are just incredibly good compared to me, and I'm great.
Yeah, so
I'm great at the game.
Just playing games when you were younger isn't going to make you one of those people. That's the whole point. Like you can't just luck into being one of these
But
people.
believe me, I've dedicated my life to this game. You think I wouldn't play if I could? Like I would love to compete in the international. You believe me, if I could place like just 12th at the international, if I could be on a team that placed 12th, I would take that in a heartbeat over talking about those guys playing the international. It's just.
Do you think that's unique? Like, how many other of your cohorts of like the casters or analysis are in that position where they're even like close, or could even consider playing in the international? Because I feel like you're close to being on the precipice.
I think there's the closest comparison would be somebody that he goes by the name Syndrin. He has been a repeat competitor and repeat talent featured at the international. Typically what happens is every single year he really wants to make it as a player. That's just his passion. That's his drive. And every single year he tries to do it. And unfortunately, he just always comes up either a bit short or a lot short. And then he naturally has to fall back into commentating, which is what he's really good at. But that it's at the end of the day, it's still his passion. He loves Dota, and every single year, people try and tell him that he would be better off. Just look, bro, just stick to casting, stick to talking about the
more
game.
Stability, more
every
money,
single year,
more.
He goes back because it's a lot of things. It's his passion, but also it's the fact it's a dream of every single player to be able to compete in the international. It's a dream to be able to win the international. Again, just watch free to play, watch the OG documentary if you want to get an idea of like what all of this means to the players. Like I just can't put it into words how much it means to them.
Yeah, it's hard for me to even come up with a comparison of what that high could even feel like, because I'm sitting here, I can't even fathom what that high would be like. I don't have anything to compare it to. I can't think of goals like that.
Yeah, it's I think very few of us have like those kind of goals in our lives. Like I have the goal of making the international as talent, but honestly that doesn't compare to making it as a player. Like the competition is much higher, and the drama and the stress is much higher as a player.
And there are a lot of people who are going to be playing at the international. I believe it's 16 teams this year.
Yep, 18 teams
18
actually.
teams.
So 18 teams are going to be heading into the international. 6 of them have qualified through these regional qualifiers, while the other 12 managed to make it through the DPC, which is the Dota Pro circuit. Basically, you get points for every single tournament, major or minor, that you were playing in, and the top 12 teams throughout the year automatically were invited in.
So the top 12 teams are like regardless of region where they come from.
Yeah. So you can have a very, very stacked region potentially. For example, like this year Europe was very dominant. Europe was very, very good and won a lot of the DPC events. And as a result, the European qualifier was actually a little bit weaker because so many European teams succeeded.
They were already
being
there.
able to make it based off of their points. So, 18 teams are going to be there. 2 teams will be eliminated after a group stage, and then we will have 16 teams in a playoffs, a double elimination playoffs.
And the exciting thing about TI is that we've already, a lot of people are like, okay, if people qualified late in the day, if they did these regional qualifiers, like surely they might not be as good of teams, which to a sense could be true, but also we've seen international after international teams who have come up from those open qualifiers, those regional qualifiers, do really well in the event. So you can't count anybody out.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the most interesting talking points about the international is that for the last 5 or 6 years, the favored team has never won the international. Obviously, there are some teams that have been like in the top 3 heading into the international, and maybe like the third best team has actually won it. But every single year since probably TI5, you could even include TI4. Every single year there is a team that is a complete surprise that makes it all the way up to the top. I could just go through them. Like TI5, you had CDEC managed to place second. TI6,
they came out of they almost were eliminated their first day.
Yeah,
they went from elimination on day 1 to second place.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. We had TI6 Digital Chaos, who were ranked probably at the very bottom by most analysts and pundits, managed to make all the way to second place, made it into the grand finals. We had TI7, who made it pretty far there. That was actually one of the rare times where like the expected teams were kind of in the finals, where you had Liquid and Newbie. But I'm sure there was definitely some surprises there in the top 8. TI8 was obviously the biggest Cinderella story that has probably ever happened in esports. Ranked 16th by many pundits and analysts.
Nearly everyone.
Yeah, pretty much everyone had OG at the bottom, especially because they had a lot of drama that happened to them where their team broke up just, weeks before they were supposed to actually qualify for the international, and had to scramble to find new players and managed to make their way all the way through the upper bracket, not losing a single series, and won the entire thing. Even in the grand finals, even against a team that they had already beaten, people were saying, they're not going to be able to do it again. Not in a best of 5. I had the same exact thought. Let me tell you,
now. Every
single step of the way at the upper bracket, watching them and studying them, I said, they can't do it. I said, maybe they can beat their first upper bracket team. Maybe. Second matchup against Evil Geniuses. No, I don't think that's not happening. EG's definitely the superior team. Against LGD, the Chinese powerhouse. Incredible team. No way they're going to beat them in the upper bracket finals. They do it anyway. A second time at a best of 5. Okay, OG must have pulled something over them. There's no way they could do it again. And OG did it in 5 games. And so much of it came down to a lot of the human element. It came down to just straight anger. It came down to the perseverance of just being able to go through all of this. Anybody who's gone through like really tough times, you realize it makes you harder and it gives you stronger resolve. That definitely came into it.
Absolutely.
A lot of friendship and love between these guys that managed to bolster each other through tough situations and come out through in the end. Like there's just so many things that work to OG's favor that they're easily the best Cinderella story that I've ever heard in esports.
It seems like so many people also want to talk about these players almost like they're robots or inhuman, like they don't have emotions. But so much of Dota goes beyond what's actually happening in the game, but your mental state, how you're playing with your friends, the people on your team. Do you like them? Like, and there's so many of these other little factors that contribute to Cinderella stories like that.
Yeah, I will tell you that if you're at the highest level and you're studying the game, you'll notice that there is a decrease in performance at TI. And, even though these players are incredibly good, they will be better at other tournaments. And
stress, nerves.
Yeah, because there's so much stress. I mean, you're out there. Somebody on your team is going to let the stress get to them. Like somebody will. Think about how much money there is. Think about how many people are watching you. You're in the middle of a stage with just thousands of people. There's very loud chants at the international every single year, whether they're cheering on your opponent or cheering you on. Maybe that makes you nervous. Every single year you see it. I always hear of somebody who just, cracks a little bit. The nerves get to them. Because even if it's not for yourself, right? It's a team game. You feel like you're letting your team down in some ways, or maybe your teammate is letting you down, and you let that get to you. You get angry at them instead of trying to comfort them and bolster them. There's I think it's a little sad that we don't get more of these human stories, because it is the biggest pressure cooker that esports players can go through, and there's going to be a lot of emotions as a result.
So many emotions. You talk about like all the cheering that goes on in the international. It's deafening. Like I've had louder chants at TI than like in major sporting events that I've been to.
Yeah.
So it's insane. And this being the first TI that's in China kind of changes the home field advantage a bit.
Oh yeah.
So normally, at TI, you still have a large like mainland Chinese contingent that travel across the world to come to the event. Normally it's cute. They all sit in like a very similar section behind the Chinese casters.
Yep.
And they like it's not like a regional war thing that's going on, but like it's very nationalistic. They're there for the Chinese teams regardless of which Chinese team they are almost.
Yes.
So now we have the opposite going on. And I don't think we're going to see, a lot of people who are flying to Shanghai. Like we had people from Shanghai flying to Seattle or whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how more of these Western teams who are used to TI being, their home field, being shook by what I can only imagine will be the most deafening arena.
Oh, absolutely. I think that TI9 is definitely going to be something to watch, just to be able to see how the fans cheer on their teams when it comes to Chinese versus the West. It's been a very long storyline that has gone through Dota's history since the early days back when it was just a mod for Warcraft 3 that China has long been looked at as the best region when it comes to Dota 2, and
similar to like a North Korea, a South Korea StarCraft situation. Like it's almost like Dota is their game.
Absolutely, that was long looked at as like they are just the best at it, and over the years that has been broken. It got broken with the very first international with a team from the CIS region, Navi, managing to take the very first international, and ever since until we got to TI8. It went back and forth between West and China every single year. So it goes Navi, and then it went IG, the Chinese favorites. Then it went to Alliance, the Swedish powerhouse. They managed to just knock everybody down. Incredible. They managed to beat Navi in the finals. So China didn't even feature in the finals. And it got to a point where it's now referred to as the curse, where every single year, pretty much it's either a China year or it's a West year. And the curse is there. The players talk about it. You don't let it get into your head too much, but they
some
know.
Voodoo shit. Like, yeah, it's like half a meme, but because it's also reality, people take it as like oh no, like is this going to affect me?
It was there every year. TI7, we had Team Liquid making it. It was a Western year, and then TI8 was supposed to be a Chinese year. China was in the grand finals. LGD was representing. Great team. As I was talking about them before, didn't think that they were going to lose to OG whatsoever. And,
let alone twice.
And they lost to them twice. OG broke the curse, quote unquote. But maybe it's just time to switch things up, because after all, we have TI9. That can be a Western year because it's going to be in Shanghai, right? So people are now, that's now the way the curse has been changed up, is that, of course, it had to be back-to-back Western years, because otherwise TI9 would be a Western year, and you can't have a Western team winning in Shanghai, right? So, it's like the history of Dota 2 is what makes so many fun storylines like that.
Even I find myself, kind of rooting for more Chinese teams this year, just because I want them to do well. I want to see them in the grand finals. I want to have that arena be as absolutely lit as possible.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be interesting, because the favorite teams are mostly Western. There are two really good Chinese teams heading into this tournament. There is Vici Gaming and LGD. So if you are cheering for China, I think those are the most likely the two teams. For me, it's Vici Gaming. I think they're a really great team. Just a fantastic young squad that has just gotten better over the season. Also a very emotional team, which makes them really fun to watch if you ever see any interviews. Or I was on a bus with them once after they lost at MDL. No. Let me tell you, they have a coach who's known for being very, very loud. He goes by ROTK, and he's known for being very, very loud and
a little eccentric.
Yeah, a little eccentric. Has a lot of fun with some of the Western players, and his team is very young. And there's one player in particular who's called Yang. He plays offlane for Vici Gaming, and boy, he is loud. Let me tell you, he's a little guy, but he is so loud. He's so fierce. And they'll just be yelling at each other back and forth, arguing about what went wrong in the game and stuff. But, throughout the year, they've pretty much been the same squad, and they've only gotten better over time. So that kind of fire must be working for them. It hasn't broken them yet. So
is there a value in teams staying the same all year long? Because like OG, who won last year's international, is coming back in, same team. Liquid
Yep.
recently, very famously had a lineup change kind of late in the hour.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other teams like Infamous who qualified through the South American qualifiers who never played a DPC major event together all season, and now they're at the international.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting stories. I think one of the first ones for anybody who's kind of following Dota 2, you may know this one, which is no team or player has won the international twice, which is amazing, right? Because 5 people are winning it. And let me tell you, like, Dota 2 is a very hardcore game. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of players who played at the first international that are still around trying to play years later. Only 2 of them have actually made it for every single international, which is Puppy and Kuro.
And Kuro.
Kuroki, who is the captain of Team Secret. Puppy is the captain of Team Secret, and Kuroki is the captain of Team Liquid. And
2 of the favorites.
2 of the favorites. Yeah, absolutely. And so that is an interesting storyline. Somebody may finally be able to win the first international twice in a row. Either a player or an organization. No org has won it twice at all.
Similar to the curse, it's just like a moment in time at this point. Like, it has to happen eventually.
Yeah, there's got to be, like, history was finally set and we broke the curse, but there's so many other long storylines that have been set up for almost a decade now that have yet to happen.
This could be the year.
This could be the year. This is just another reason to be able to tune into that.
You can be here next year and be like, this will be the year. And the year after that will be like, guys, seriously, this has to be the year.
I mean, let me tell you, I thought it was going to happen going all the way. I thought TI6 was going to be the last year. I remember watching Wings win and saying this, was such an amazing year because still nobody's won the international 2 times. This is probably going to be the final year. And here we're talking about TI9, and that goes to show you the level of competition that there is in this circuit, that even though these guys have dedicated their life to this game, they still have not been able to win that world championships twice. There's
so much turnover, and not like, we still get new players often. And even though a lot of the names by now, if you're familiar with Dota, been watching, you'll probably recognize a lion's share of them, but there's still new up and coming players from new regions.
Absolutely. We've got, like you pointed to Infamous. I think that's a really interesting storyline. South America has consistently been the weakest of all the regions when it comes to these international events. They are the permanent underdogs, no matter what. And they're the underdogs for so many reasons.
They're young.
They're young. Let's talk about their playing setup, right? They're naturally in poorer countries, have a harder time being able to play consistently, will oftentimes be playing at LAN centers, so they have to make extra effort to be able to play in the first place. The money that they win is more life-changing for them. And then on top of that, on top of all these other things, they have to play on a server because they don't really have enough great competition in their own region, that they have to play on the USD server, which naturally has much higher ping for them. And that's just accepted. That is just entirely the way that all of these players goes. They all play on US East, and because that's the best way to be able to get better, is to play with the other best people in the world.
It must be like their elevation training all year. Like all year they're like practicing in Denver. They're climbing Mount Everest, and they finally get to TI and they take their weight jacket off and they're like, oh, I can breathe now.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what Dota's like without high ping.
If you are a fan of the underdogs, there's pretty much no better team to cheer for than Infamous. They as you said, they haven't been to any other DPC season. They are. It's a total enigma. Like, what I was doing my research of them, I watched them qualify. I went through and did my research for them specifically like an hour ago. They were like the last team I got to. I read through the stats and I looked at it and I said, I don't know how much any of this means, because what
it'll be so different.
Yeah, they're like what they did against other South American teams and what they do against some of the other international teams is going to be very different, right? And how much are they going to keep their own play style to heart? How much are they going to try and adopt what the best teams are doing out there? What are they going to try and follow what Team Secret or LGD does? It's going to be a total mystery until the event starts.
That has to be scary for some of those, teams who are more established too, because they have experience playing against the other top teams. They have so much more material to research and study. But then a team like Infamous comes around and they're like, this is a wild card.
Yeah, absolutely. There's famously, I say they're permanently the underdogs, and very often they perform quite poorly at these international tournaments. But there is at least one beautiful example of a South American team doing great, and that was at the Frankfurt Major, I believe, where we had maybe they was still infamous at that time, where they actually knocked out one of the favorites, which I believe was Newbie. This was a super young squad that nobody had a whole lot of hopes for, and they were known for being a little bit bad-mannered in games and stuff, and they would do something called item dropping, which is you would take an item and put it on the ground in front of your opponent and pick it up again before he could do something. Maybe you were killing him and you just drop it on the ground just to taunt him,
Which you can argue is very risky and very dumb and very silly.
It's incredibly dumb. There is one instance of a game entirely changing off of a player dropping his item and getting stunned and losing that item. Kyle Swindle-Melons knows all about that. But there's at least one instance of that. It's very dumb, but it's also infuriating. Let me tell you, I've been on the opposite end of that, and I've had items dropped on me before, and I'm like, you little shit, But it gets you, and that's the kind of psychological warfare that works in Dota 2, and it worked for OG recently at the last international. They spammed voice lines. In game, we have chat wheel voice lines that go on, and they spammed it, and it was a real psychological edge. You see it in the documentaries. The enemy team talked about it. LGD in the grand finals talked about what do they do about these chat wheel lines being spammed at them all the time.
They lost. That's what they ended up doing. They couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that, something, someone listening who might, have that, not have the experience of knowing what it's like to play with external variables like that. They're like, oh, well, why don't they just ignore it? Why don't they just play the game? Or like, why do these little silly things matter when they're playing such a high level Dota game? But it does. It's the little things, the things you can't practice for.
Absolutely. It's again, in such a stressful situation, just the littlest thing can set you off. And the littlest thing also helps them. In many times, like OG spamming their chat wheel lines and having fun with the game, and their friendship is what got them through so many tough parts.
Speaking of other underdog teams, I think a lot of people are really excited to see Navi finally back at International.
If you have not followed Dota 2 for a long time, you probably tuned in maybe at the TI2, TI3, TI4 era, you would know about El Clasico. It was Alliance versus Navi. This was the TI3 Grand Finals matchup. It went to a Game 5. It was long held as the best international finals until OG won. And this was just the matchup to watch. Everybody wanted to see these two teams go up against each other every single time. They did in the TI after TI3. Every single time they matched up against each other, you would have record-breaking stream numbers and stuff like that, because there are just hardcore fans on both sides. And if you were a fan of those teams back then, I feel very strongly that you would be a fan of these teams now. Alliance is still a Swedish powerhouse with an entirely different roster, but let me tell you that roster is
scrappy, fun, exciting.
So fun. They are one of the few rosters that you can actually get to know the players real quickly, and they are actually all very charismatic. Some of them a little bit more outspoken than others. Their captain, Insania, is just a really nice guy. I'm a little bit biased because I would consider him my friend, but he's relatively outspoken, but in the Swedish, he never really gets too excited about anything, but he's a super charismatic and funny guy. So if you're a fan of the old Alliance, I highly suggest get to know this new Alliance, watch a few interviews with them very quickly. You'll begin to like them and hopefully cheer them on at TI.
It feels like a new generation because it is, but also, for the first time in such a long time, we can see those two teams, Navi and Alliance, play a game together at the International, which hasn't happened since that final moment.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Dota memories is I kind of lied to Valve a little bit to get a pass for TI3.
Yeah.
So I was standing by the stage watching that game, and I'm like, that's when it clicked for me that Dota is this is the end all be all. Like what's ever going to get better than this? And I feel like, like you said, with the exception of the international finals last year, so many people look back at that era with Navi and Alliance around TI3 TI4, and just like that's Dota to them.
Yeah. And they're back. Both the Na'Vi and Alliance. Na'Vi managed to qualify through the CIS region. They managed to win over, I would say, at least 2 teams that were probably favored over them. One of which was Gambit, who was very heavily favored, was actually so close to qualifying via points, and choked a bit at their qualifiers. But this is another young squad that has, I would say, some, I wouldn't even say up and coming, because their safe laner Crystallize, I think, is already well established as just one of those great talents coming out of Ukraine. I think that they're captained by Seneko, who has had like a little bit of a hit or miss when it comes to his teams that he's been a part of. But
he's probably the most experienced person on their roster at this point.
He's definitely the most experienced person. He's trying to guide Na'Vi squads, previous Na'Vi squads, and try and get them into winning positions with not a great amount of success, but I feel like this is finally a roster that I don't really know, but it looks like a roster that I would believe in if I was a captain, right? It's just a bunch of young guys that feels like it's been picked out. Crystallize seems to be the star that the Na'Vi organization is holding on to, and I would agree. I think it's a player that I would build a roster around for sure.
And they did. I mean, they came out of, when they were qualifying for the international, they almost didn't even make it out of the group stage.
Yeah.
So, you know, they fight against these powerhouse teams. Everyone's like, like Navi's just like, you know, they're an old washed up organization. Yep. They can't do anything anymore. Like, why are they even here? It's almost like a joke at this point. But then they do it and they're here, and none of that old stuff matters anymore.
Absolutely. It you know, it doesn't matter if your team broke up, you know, like 2 months or it was probably like only a month before the qualifiers. Doesn't matter if you barely made it through the group stage. It doesn't matter at TI if you say TI4, the champions newbie, barely made it through what was called a bubble bracket. They barely got out of their groups, and they were at like the bottom of that group area to be able to qualify for the next round. We had this second round, which is called the bubble bracket, and they had to make it through 3 different teams, I think. They had to beat all 3 teams.
They went like all the way from the bottom
to be able to make
top,
through. Yeah, it was just like an incredible bottom from the top, and managed to make it all the way through into the main event playoffs and won the entire thing. It just you know, these kind of stories are there for every single international.
Yeah. Newbie is an interesting story for this international because Newbie by and large has always been a Chinese organization.
Yep.
And I mean, while they still are a Chinese organization, they are fielding a North American squad this year.
Yes, they are. They because the Chinese roster that they had, which they had a superstar on their team who actually featured in the grand finals against Team Liquid at TI7 SCC.
Bless his heart. The most attractive man in Dota.
Yeah, dude, he is so attractive. He is so good looking. And it's funny, there is that documentary out there, and it showcases you know, some of the newbie players and how they looked after they lost the grand finals. And you see SCC and he's just broken. He just, you know, he doesn't know what to do at that point after he has to watch somebody else pick up the Aegis. And unfortunately, he doesn't even qualify for this international. And as a result, newbie go and pick up a North American squad who had some issues with their organization. Their organization had to drop them. And they picked up
like bankruptcy, like they just didn't exist anymore. So there's this squad of 5 people who qualified for TI, who just don't have a banner to play under.
Yeah, and they go and pick them up. So for the first time, Newbie's going to be fielding a Western team, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the whether or not like the Chinese fans will adopt the team, because we've seen that a lot from other regions. Say we take ESL 1 Birmingham, for example, and how they adopted Pain as they just were like, we don't have an English team. You're now our squad. They took the South American squad that was, you know, again, the underdogs, and were just kind of making their way through, managed to make it into the playoffs, and they backed them all the way through. And we'll see whether or not the Chinese fans at Shanghai will give the same kind of love for this North American squad, just because, you know, Newbie is backing them. We'll see.
There's precedent of that too. I mean, even if you think about Evil Geniuses as a team that is, you know, from North America, a lot of their players kind of are, kind of aren't, and haven't been throughout history.
Yeah.
But like they're the people who get the USA chance, regardless of what flag is actually by their players' names.
Oh yeah, you could have 4 Europeans on Evil Geniuses, but you're still gonna hear USA
they're an
every
American
single time
team.
they play.
I'm guilty of that. Like I'm like, hey, you guys are from San Francisco, right? Yeah, California, go USA, woo. We'd be here for 20 hours if we talked about all these teams because there are so many interesting stories. That we barely even touched on teams that directly qualified. Teams like, Secret, VP, EG, TL, Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, these teams that are, just mainstays throughout the year in Dota, who in and of themselves, like their stories might be less underdog related, but now that doesn't make them any less interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if we could touch on just one more, I think a really interesting one is Team Liquid, who kicked one of their players. This is the same roster that they won TI7 with. And they kicked one of their players who won them TI. His play and his heroes absolutely secured them the Aegis. And they kicked him and picked up somebody else. And that same player, they kicked a player called Matumba Man. He is now on the team that qualified through the European region called Chaos Esports Club. And that is another one of those, just like the OG versus EG last year, that's another one of those potential, who knows, revenge stories. Maybe, Liquid is proven right. The fact that they were right to be able to kick Matumba Man, you just don't know until you see it at the International.
And the interesting thing about that Team Liquid roster is that I believe they were like the roster that stayed together the longest throughout the history of Dota.
Yes.
They were together for years, which in our scene is almost unheard of. It seems like, every other week someone's like, we got rid of our offlane, or we wanted a new one, or like Jimmy didn't clean the bathroom, so we need a new support player. Like the amount of turnover in Dota teams is so much that to see Team Liquid stay together for so long is what made them getting rid of Matumba Man so impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since winning a TI is such an iconic thing, and the fact that they did very well the year after they won TI, even if they didn't win it again, they still did very well for themselves.
Yeah, I think that
people just assumed that it was going to happen again. Yeah, like 4th place is still great, even if it's not grand finals, right? And they were doing well this season too, and they kicked him, and then they immediately went in with this new player called Weehaw, went into the next major and tore things up. They look sick. They were in the grand finals. They got second. But at the same time, Matumba Man, he carried Chaos Esports Club through their qualifiers. He had several games where he went through without a single death, which is crazy in Dota 2. There's a lot of action in Dota. If you aren't familiar with Dota and you're looking at it in League of Legends, let me promise you're not going to be seeing a 5-2 game score at 30 minutes in. You're going to be seeing 30, 40, 50 kills by a half hour. Like that's just the way that Dota 2 happens. So Matumba Man, being able to have several games where he didn't have a death is just incredible, and he carried Chaos. So both are showing they were right in a way, and it's only going to come down to who places better at.
We'll see who's more right at TI. Yeah. There's a lot of talk about like the honeymoon phase when a team has new members. So that'll go into the conversation about Team Liquid. Like, are they in their honeymoon phase? Because they have a new players. Chaos Esports in the honeymoon phase where everyone gets along and is so happy and it's going to be great and all roses and flowers as you head into TI.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, if I had to bet on a team, I'm still definitely a little bit of a Liquid boy myself. I think that they'll probably perform a little bit stronger. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if they had a poor showing, or if Chaos Esports Club went off and had a really good TI.
Chaos Esports Club is head up by a captain who's called Misery, and he's the one who...
His player profile picture.
He led Digital Chaos. He was one of those teams that nobody expected to do well and managed to get second. He placed at TI6. He placed second. It was in the grand finals against one of the most iconic teams of all time, which is Wings, who is quite the team themselves. But he managed to make that run through into the grand finals. Maybe he can do it again with Matumba Man. Who knows?
It's totally possible. He's one of those institutions at TI also. He's been to almost everyone at this point.
Yeah.
I think he's missed one, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Just one. That was the Planet Odd. That was 2 years ago. I think he missed it.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And even like if you look at all the teams who were at the International this year, we've seen a lot of these names before. The VP, LGD. There's only 3 new organizations this year.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy to me. It's NIP, who people might know from their success in Counter-Strike or other games. Right. So they're still a giant organization. It blows my mind that it's taken them this long to get in there. I used to root for them a lot when they were the Final Tribe. That's their current players. And then Keen, who's one of the Chinese teams.
Right.
It's their first TI. And then Royal Never Give Up, which is another
Royal
Chinese team. It's also their first TI.
They are both those teams, Royal Never Give Up and Keen. Royal Never Give Up is a personal favorite of mine.
How can you not like Monet? He's in Dota right now. He's doing a Crip sign in his player profile picture. Like there's so much swag. Monet has so much swag. I'll show you some pictures.
Oh, that's awesome. So again, if you're backing, like, if you want to be able to back a Chinese team, but maybe you don't want like one of the favorites, like VG Gaming, I think Royal Never Give Up is like a really cool squad to be able to follow. Very young squad. Wait, that's actually his player profile?
I mean, I did the Photoshop edit. This is really bad for a podcast. No one can show the picture that I'm showing Cap right now. Yes, he's doing a Crip sign in his player profile picture.
Really?
I promise you that's the case. Go look it up later.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He's also a pirate.
That's excellent.
But some of these players have personalities. There's so many fun stories. You can root for underdogs. You can root for favorites. Royal Never Give Up is a very fun team. It's great to see Lanham there. He's also like a Chinese institution who's the person on that team. I think Super is their captain.
Yes, I believe so. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I do think that this one of the other things about the international that makes it really nice is the fact that if you want to be able to learn more about a team, this is probably the best time to do it because there's going to be a lot of really great content pieces made around these players. It's one of the rare times where players are really forced to do content. Dota players are very, a lot of them are introverts, very soft-spoken, don't really want to get in front of a camera, but this is the one time they're really forced to. We're going to have a lot of in-depth player profiles on players and their history and what they do outside of the game and how they grew up. And there's been so many great stories. Again, the documentary Free to Play was the first one that really hit, I think, everybody's hearts.
Even just the short player profile pieces that get made every year where they just take a player from any given team and, they go interview their family. They go to their homeland. They see what a day in their life's like. They talk about their story. Like, it's stuff like that really opens up not just Dota, but esports to like to a broader audience because that's shareable content. You can connect and understand that these people are also just people and not just crazy Dota robots.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, you don't get a whole lot of personality behind these players in other events, but this is the one time that like you'll be able to really find somebody that you identify with and can cheer for.
And it's also like the Dota convention in a sense because all these people are going to be under one roof. Like most of these people are friends, whether they be like the actual players, the talent, the people who are going to the event together. It's like I've gone to TI as a vacation to meet up with my friends who I never see any other time during the year.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
It's great to see all these people, all these players, if nothing else, being happy. It's this weird cacophony of like I'm super happy to like be around my friends and see these people, but at the same time be like, I want all of you to fail. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna take the big check home. I'm gonna buy mom a new house. It's a real double-edged sword at these events.
Yeah, a lot of friendships have been made through Dota, and a lot of friendships have been broken because of Dota, because of the teams that you have to kick someone, or
it's high emotions.
You end up having some sort of disagreement. Like everything can be broken. Under this pressure cooker.
I have friends that I can't play Dota with anymore because I appreciate them as human beings and I love to go get dinner with them and I'll work with them. But if we play Dota, I realize that they are my least favorite person.
Yes.
So
yes.
It's the same way with the teams.
I 100% agree. Let me tell you, there's a new matchmaking system in Dota right now that encourages people to play together. And I've played with some of my fellow talent and it has been a frustrating experience.
Yeah, now you have to go work with them, and you're going to be sitting on a panel. You're going to be talking about a great game, and you're going to be looking over, and you're going to be like, "Man, you played such a fucking bad bristleback game."
One of them disagrees with me. I'm just going to lose it all of a sudden. What about that time you went 0-10-4? What about that, huh? Think you're hot shit at Dota?
I'm good at talking about it, right? I mean, you're the one who played with me. Something that we haven't even talked about, which is almost it blows my mind, is that all this exists outside of the actual meta gameplay of what's going on and what's popular.
Yeah.
With Dota actually inside the game. And to be honest with you, I haven't played a game in a couple weeks. I don't know. Like, I'm going into the international. I don't know who the top picked heroes are going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know who is complete trash and worthless. Can you give me like a really quick catch up? Just like a super quick, like I'll even put 60 seconds on a timer. Like I want the top level TLDR Spark notes.
Okay, I will give you the TLDR, but first I have to say, honestly, I don't even know that much, and I play a lot, and I play regularly because I feel like it helps me connect with what's happening in the game, and it helps me keep like a pulse. You know, I want to be able to know what's happening in Dota 2 right now, and I play a lot, and I cannot confidently tell you what kind of heroes are going to be picked at the international because it's such a strategy focused game, the idea, the quote unquote meta, what is popular right now, what people think is good will change so quickly between now and the time we actually start the international and these teams are playing scrims against each other, that ideas will get thrown in and will either, become the hot new thing very quickly, or, things that you thought were incredibly good just get dropped by the wayside at a moment's notice. So that being said, let me tell you, Alchemist is ruining all my games right now. That is a hero that just like farms up gold incredibly fast, and he's just ruining all my games. I feel like the overall meta is a mix between aggression and control. And what I mean by that is you're going to see a lot of these. If you want to see action, oftentimes the mid lane is the place to go to. This is going to be a player who is moving around the map right now. It's very popular to have these players picking heroes like Ember Spirit or Death Prophet, and they're moving around the map and they're making things happen. They're killing heroes. They're pushing down towers. And then once you've secured an advantage, then it becomes about controlling the map and controlling the advantage that you have and building it up. And the enemy team, when you're behind like that, has to make risky moves and has to, use smoke or use movement around the map to be able to chip away at that advantage the enemy team has. And one team fight can sway the entire thing. So it's like you'll see a team and they'll take control, they'll be aggressive, they'll battle it out, and they'll finally gain an advantage enough that the enemy can't really fight them, and they'll secure that for like 5 minutes. But then like one team fight can change all that, and then the enemy team is the one in control, and they're going to start trying to secure their advantage. So that's the way I would kind of describe to a newcomer the way that Dota is going to be played right now. But again, who knows? Which
sounds exciting. Like it seems like these games that are going on right now are a lot more action packed than they might have been a couple years ago.
There have been a couple of changes that have really I would say they're called forced timings, and what I mean by that is that the developer has created certain artificial ways to force people to fight even more than they used to before. So every 5 minutes, there's these bounty runes that are now spawned all over the map that give you a lot of team gold. Yeah, there's 4 of them. So very often that's going to be like one of the times where people go and like try and get kills just before those spawns, so they have better control of the map. So there's going to be pretty much like every 5 minutes, you're going to have some sort of fight happening. People are going to be getting kills. People are going to be dying. And I think that's what is going to create consistent action for people who are a little bit newer to Dota 2 and like just want to be able to experience like the spectacle of like what team fights look like. Every 5 minutes, you're probably going to see something happening, guaranteed. Other than that, I don't know. What other ways would I describe the meta right now? I think that's about it.
You said Alchemist. Are there any other like real big standout heroes? Ember Spirit?
See, it's a little bit difficult because the drafting phase that happens in Dota 2, there's going to be some very popular heroes that just get banned away every single time.
That we'll probably never see.
Io, Chen, like those 2 heroes you may never see at the international, but they're probably, it could be just because they're always being banned away, but before somebody can pick it. I think there's what was I going to say? There was something that I think people, if you're also new to Dota 2 or you haven't watched in a while, let me tell you, I just did all my research of these teams and what they're picking and stuff. And let me tell you, it's very different based off of the regions. There's always going to be similarities in what heroes are good for sure. But the ideas that they have and some of the secondary and tertiary heroes that are being picked are very different per region. And the international always becomes a story about who's right about their idea and their theory of the game, whose ideas are actually correct when they come into it. And all these regions are going to be clashing and putting their ideas against others, and somebody's got to succeed. And somebody's going to be right in that way. And some team is going to succeed. And what you're going to see is other teams will look at that, they'll adopt it, they'll turn it into they'll make it their own, and then it becomes a question of like who can do that thing the best in a way, who can innovate very quickly under a lot of stress. That
can take multiple forms. Sometimes that innovation is like how they're playing the game holistically. Sometimes it might be a certain hero pick.
Yeah.
I think last year that we saw like Lich come out of nowhere? Maybe it was 2 years ago.
Honestly, I have a terrible memory for
well, that makes two of us, so
Dota
probably
2 history. But I can tell you, like every single year, there is like these quintessential heroes that they were not the go-to picks. Even during the group stage, they may not have been the go-to picks, but as the tournament goes on later on in the playoffs, they start becoming like the heroes of the tournament. People realize, and they didn't. No matter, they played thousands of hours of Dota before, and it didn't occur to them then. But it's only until you put your ideas really to the ultimate test against other people in this high-stakes combat that you start discovering like what is actually best.
I guess we're going to try and round this out a little bit.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know how long it's been going on for, which could be problematic. Do you have anyone whose ideas you like going into TI? Which is a roundabout way of asking, do you have any favorites going into TI?
The ultimate favorite right now is Team Secret. And I do feel like this is going to be one of those years. Every single year, the favorite has a target on them. And as a result, they oftentimes fail to do very well, like not placing top 3, going out, 7th, 8th, something like that. I think this is going to be one of the few years where the favorite team actually does quite well. So I like what Team Secret is doing. I like their ideas about the game a lot. But who knows? Like, again, because they have a target on their back, maybe everybody's going to know how to play against them. Who else? For underdogs, I personally like RNG quite a bit. I think Liquid will actually do very well this year. They could be the first team and first captain and several players to be able to win the international twice. That's a strong possibility in my head.
Yeah, I'm definitely very casually rooting for Team Liquid. Just let's break that streak. Let's take a team that I feel some personal attachment to. Let's root for them. Let's grab one. I really like Vici. For the China side, I think they're doing exciting stuff.
Yes, they are a very fun team to watch. And again, if you want to be able to cheer for a Chinese team that is one of the favorites, Vici Gaming would be my go-to instantly.
Yeah, Vici or LGD are probably the two if you're looking for like the strongest Chinese representation. It's a shame we barely even talked about like the SEA teams because it seems like every time the international comes around, they become Super Saiyan strong. They're like, TNC can just pop off, Meninsky can just pop off, and then suddenly you're like, they weren't on my radar, but now look at that, they're top 8, they're top 6. What are they doing in a top 4 situation?
TNC is a Filipino team that has had similar rosters for the last 3 or 4 years and have had a lot of big underdog upsets. They took down the favorites when OG were the favorites for TI7. 7? Yeah, I think so.
I think that's both right.
I think they managed to knock OG out. It was a huge surprise because they were so dominant during the DPC season. They're a great Southeast Asian team to be able to watch, and they're very likely a team that you'll be able to watch next year as well because again they've kept similar rosters throughout the years.
It seems like they shuffle one or two, or some people go away from TNC, they come back to TNC. Yeah, I feel like TNC is actually a roster of about 12 people at this point, and at any given time, it's just one of those 12 people. That's how I kind of put them in my head.
The Fnatic is a great squad to watch just because they have a really big personality in Ice Ice Ice. There's a lot of history with him in Dota 2, and he is probably one of the most eccentric and interesting guys that that is out there in Dota 2?
Fnatic's cool because if you're looking at like a C region, they have people from Thailand, you know, from Singapore, I think, the Philippines, Korea, like they're like the true melting pot when it comes to SEA teams.
Yeah, and I think like that I feel like it's like always an interesting point for Southeast Asia. Is like, is it better to have the melting pot, or is it better to be able to have just one squad from one country that you can play? Which is
TNC. They're all Filipino.
Pretty much always been Filipino. So yeah, I think no matter where you're from, no matter what kind of you're backing, there's always going to be one team and probably several players that you're going to find if you watch the international, you watch some of these content pieces, you watch the game, that you're going to be like, damn, I like that guy a lot. I want to see him do well. I want to see him lift the ages. I want
to watch their stream. I want to follow them. I want to get better from them. Like it's always great to see those personalities, and we're so close. Like you're taking a flight in 2 days to go over there.
Yes.
Like I mean, the international is starting basically tomorrow.
Yeah. This is definitely if you're thinking about if you haven't watched Dota 2 in a while, you want to be able to watch some stuff. We talked about what you should watch. Just do it now because TI is coming up real fast.
This is literally the best time of the year. You're not going to find a better time to either come back into Dota or to sit down and really obsess over it. We're going to have weeks of the best games all year, the best storylines all year, the best video pieces all year. It's going to be this is it. This is Dota Christmas.
And I hope that, like, if anything, especially if you haven't watched Dota in a while, or if you're new to Dota, if you're going to take anything away from this, just take away the fact that this podcast has gone on much longer than we anticipated.
Fuck!
And that's entirely because of how passionate we are about the game. And I promise you bring any of the other talent, any of the players, any of the other guys who routinely watch Dota, and they're going to feel the exact same way. And there's a good reason for that.
So you should be excited too.
Absolutely.
I'm excited. You're excited. Everyone should be excited. So I think I'll let you go. You should go like pack suitcases or like do whatever it is you have to do to get ready. Did you already like pick out suits? Did you like lay them on your bed yet and be like, oh, day one's going to be purple and day two's going to be navy?
No, I don't. That's all decide the morning of, but I haven't bought I get a new suit every year for the international to kind of celebrate, and I didn't do that this year, so we'll see.
You can go
Maybe
get
I'm
one.
gonna do
go get
it
one in China.
Yeah,
go treat yourself. You deserve it. But thanks everybody for listening to Sidepole Podcast. This is episode 1. This is like a pilot. This is like there might be more, maybe, I think.
If you guys like it, please let us know, and we can make this a more regular thing in the next season. But this is just like a TI crunch where we just try to get through pretty much as about TI as possible before I had to go. So.
Yeah, maybe we can let it breathe more next time or something. but thank y'all. Well, good luck. Have fun. See you around. Bye.
Bye.